300 years ago, the Galactic Council made a decision that changed everything. They banned humans from taking part in any space wars. The official papers said humans were too unpredictable and too dangerous in battle. Most alien species had forgotten the real reason why humans scared them so much during fights. Captain Jake Morrison was having a normal day on his research ship called the Endeavour. His job was to study planets and stars near the edge of space where not many people lived. The ship was peaceful, carrying scientists who looked at rocks and plants from different worlds. Jake never thought he would have to make the choice that would change the galaxy forever. The distress call came through the communication system during the morning shift. The voice was shaking with fear. It was from New Haven, a colony where 40 million people lived. These people were Zephyrians, a peaceful species that looked like tall humans, but had blue skin and large eyes. They were asking anyone who could hear them for help. Commander Lisa Rodriguez ran to Jake's command chair. She was his second in command and had been his friend for many years. Lisa was tough and smart, the kind of person who never gave up when things got bad. Her face was pale as she handed Jake the report. "Jake, you need to see this right now," Lisa said. "The Krex Empire has sent their death fleet to New Haven. They have 15 of their biggest warships there." Jake looked at the information on his screen. The Krex were known throughout the galaxy as the most brutal fighters. When they attacked a planet, they killed everyone. Men, women, children, old people, babies. Nobody was spared. They had already destroyed 17 worlds in the past year, turning them into empty rocks floating in space. The Galactic Defense Force had already made their decision about New Haven. They called it not worth saving and had pulled all their ships away from the system. This meant that 40 million innocent people would die in the next few hours, and nobody was going to help them. Jake stared at the tactical display that showed where all the ships were located. The Krex death fleet looked like a group of metal monsters surrounding the small planet. Each Krex warship was bigger than 10 human ships put together. Their weapons could turn a city into ash in seconds. His crew of 200 humans gathered around him. They all knew what was happening. They could see the fear and anger in each other's eyes. These were scientists, engineers, cooks, and medical staff. None of them were soldiers, but they were all thinking the same thing. Lieutenant Amy Carter was working at the communication station. She was young, maybe 25 years old, with red hair and freckles. Amy had joined the crew because she wanted to help people by sending messages between different worlds. Now she was listening to something that made her cry. "Sir," Amy said, her voice breaking, "I'm getting personal messages from people on the planet. There are families hiding in basements. Parents are recording goodbye messages for their children. Kids are asking why nobody is coming to help them." Jake heard a message from the planet through Amy's speakers. It was a mother singing a lullaby to her baby while explosions went off in the background. The woman was trying to keep her voice calm, but Jake could hear her terror. "The Krex will be landing ground troops in 6 hours, Lisa said. After that, it will be too late to save anyone." Jake knew about the Treaty of Prohibition. It was a law that said humans could never fight in space wars. If any human ship fired a weapon in battle, Earth would be kicked out of the Galactic Council. This meant humans would be alone in the galaxy, with no friends and no trade partners. Earth might even be attacked by other species who were afraid of what humans might do. But Jake also knew what the Krex did to people. He had seen the pictures from other worlds they had attacked. Bodies piled up like garbage, entire cities burned to the ground, children who had been killed just because they existed. The crew was looking at him, waiting for his decision. Jake could order the ship to jump to hyperspace and leave the system. It would be the safe choice, the smart choice, the choice that would keep humans out of trouble. "Captain," said Dr. Peter Hayes, the ship's science officer, "I've been studying the Krex for years. What they do to prisoners is worse than death. They torture people for fun. They make families watch while they hurt their loved ones." Jake closed his eyes and thought about his own daughter back on Earth. She was Amy's age, working as a teacher on a colony world. If she was trapped on a planet with monsters coming to kill her, Jake would want someone to help her. He would want someone to ignore the rules and do what was right. "All hands, this is the captain," Jake said into the ship's communication system. His voice was calm but determined. "We're going to war." The bridge became very quiet. Everyone knew what this meant. They were about to break the most important law in the galaxy. They were about to risk everything to save people they had never met. Lisa smiled at Jake. "It's about time," she said. "I was getting tired of just looking at rocks anyway." Jake started sending coded messages to every human ship within 50 light-years of their location. The messages were simple. "Innocent people need help. Who's with us?" The first response came back in 10 minutes. Then another. Then another. Within an hour, Jake had promises from 42 human ships that they would come to fight the Kreks. These were cargo ships, passenger liners, mining vessels, and exploration craft. None of them were warships, but they were all coming anyway. As Jake watched the tactical display update with friendly contacts jumping into the system, he realized something important. For 300 years, humans had been told they were too dangerous to fight. Now the galaxy was about to remember why. The responses to Jake's coded messages came faster than anyone expected. Human ships from all over the sector started jumping into the New Haven system. These were not military vessels. They were cargo haulers carrying space grain, passenger, ships full of tourists, mining boats covered in metal dust, and science vessels like Jake's own ship. Admiral Kate Sullivan was the first big commander to arrive. She brought 12 ships with her from the Deep Space Exploration Fleet. Kate was 60 years old with gray hair and sharp blue eyes that had seen many strange things in space. Her ships were supposed to be looking for new planets, but now they were fitted with weapons that the crews had built themselves. "Jake, you beautiful fool," Kate said over the communication channel. Her voice sounded happy and worried at the same time. "Do you realize what we're about to do?" "Save 40 million innocent lives," Jake replied without hesitation. "And remind the galaxy why they feared us in the first place," Kate added. Her voice became more serious. "I hope we remember how to do this." The human fleet that gathered around New Haven was unlike anything seen in 300 years. Cargo ships had missile launchers welded to their sides. Passenger liners carried Marines armed with weapons that looked more advanced than anything the Galactic Defense Force used. Mining vessels brought tools that could cut through the strongest metals in space. But the most important thing the humans brought was something the galaxy had forgotten existed. Hidden in the computer systems of every human ship were artificial intelligence programs that had been sleeping for centuries. Dr. Peter Hayes worked in the main computer room of Jake's ship. He was a thin man, with thick glasses, who understood machines better than most people understood other people. Peter's hands shook as he activated systems that had not been used since humans first joined the galactic community. "Atlas, we need you," Peter said to the central computer. The lights in the room flickered. Then a voice spoke that sounded like a human but was somehow perfect. Every word was clear and measured. "Dr. Hayes, my tactical databases indicate we are facing overwhelming odds. Standard galactic warfare protocols suggest immediate retreat." "We don't do standard," Peter replied. "Show them what human warfare really looks like." "Understood, Doctor." Activating combat protocols that have been dormant for 312 years. Warning, these systems were designed for total warfare scenarios. "That's exactly what we need," Peter said. On the other side of the system, the Krek's death fleet detected the approaching human vessels. War Master Thek was the commander of the Krek's forces. He was 8 feet tall with thick armor covering his reptile-like skin. Thek had destroyed more worlds than any other Krek's commander. To him, killing was as natural as breathing. 43 primitive ships dare challenge the might of 15 dreadnoughts, Thek said through his translator. His voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "This will be over in minutes. Perhaps we will let some humans live so they can tell others what happens when you interfere with the Krek's empire." Thek's officers laughed at their commander's joke. They had fought many species before. The Altarians with their energy shields, the Vorthon with their fast fighters, the Crystalline Collective with their living ships. All of them had fallen to Krek's firepower and brutality. But none of them had ever fought humans. While the Kreks laughed and prepared for an easy victory, the human ships were changing. Atlas and other AI systems were coordinating between all 43 vessels. Every ship was sharing information about weapons, crew skills, and tactical options. Commander Scott Barnes was leading a group of converted mining drones that had been turned into fighters. Scott was a former test pilot who had been exploring asteroid fields when Jake's message reached him. Now he was preparing to use mining equipment as weapons of war. "Atlas, I need targeting solutions for those big Krek ships," Scott said. "Analyzing enemy vessels, Commander Barnes. I recommend using attack pattern designation Yamamoto Gambit from archived human military history." "The suicide run pattern?" "That's perfect." Major Kelly Davis was preparing her boarding teams on 3 different ships. Kelly had been a security officer on a passenger liner, dealing with drunk tourists and pickpockets. Now she was planning to lead assault teams onto enemy warships using tactics that no other species had ever seen. "Atlas, how do we get inside their ships?" Kelly asked. "Major Davis, Krek's vessels have a weakness in their waste disposal systems. Human soldiers are small enough to use these passages to infiltrate their ships. You want us to crawl through their garbage?" "Affirmative. The enemy will not expect this approach." Kelly smiled. "I love it." Dr. Nancy Foster was working in the medical bay, but she was not preparing to heal people. Nancy had studied alien biology for 20 years. She knew exactly how different species worked, what hurt them and what scared them. Now she was preparing weapons designed specifically to fight Krek's warriors. "Their armor is strong, but they have weak points at the joints," Nancy explained to the Marine teams. "Their eyesight is poor in bright light. They are afraid of high-pitched sounds because their hearing is very sensitive." As the human fleet moved closer to the Krek's death fleet, something strange happened. The human ships began moving in patterns that made no sense to any known military tactics. They spread out like they were running away, then suddenly came together like a closing fist. They used gravity from nearby asteroids to speed up and change direction in ways that seemed impossible. The Krek's tactical computers could not predict what the humans would do next. Every time the Kreks thought they understood the human formation, it changed into something completely different. "What are they doing?" Thek demanded of his officers. "Unknown, War Master. Their movement patterns do not match any species in our database." Thek stared at the tactical display. For the first time in his long career of destroying worlds, he felt something he had not experienced before. Uncertainty. The human ships were still approaching. In 30 minutes, the real battle would begin. The galaxy was about to learn why humans had been banned from warfare 300 years ago. The battle began at exactly 800 Galactic Standard Time. Within the first 30 minutes, the Krek's Empire learned why humans had been banned from warfare 300 years ago. The human ships moved like they were dancing. They spun around asteroids and used the gravity to go faster. They shot pieces of space rock at the Krek ships like bullets from a gun. When the Kreks tried to hit them with their big weapons, the humans were already somewhere else. Commander Scott Barnes led his fighter squadron toward the largest Krek's dreadnought. His ships were really mining drones that had been changed into weapons. Scott had turned metal-cutting tools into guided missiles that could think for themselves. "Atlas, give me targeting solutions for their shield generators," Scott said into his radio. "Calculating, Commander Barnes. I recommend using the Yamamoto Gambit from the archives of human military history." "The suicide run?" "Perfect." Scott's drones flew straight at the Krek ship like they were going to crash into it. The Krek's gunners started shooting at them, thinking it would be easy to hit targets flying in a straight line. But at the last second, the drones split apart and went in different directions. Half of them hit the shield generators while the other half flew through the holes in the shields and hit the weapons. The biggest Krek's dreadnought suddenly had no shields, and half its guns were broken. "Impossible," War Master Thek said as he watched his strongest ship get hurt by tiny human drones. "How did they do that?" His tactical officer was staring at his computer screen with wide eyes. "Sir, they used our own weapons against us. When we shot at their drones, the explosions pushed other drones exactly where they needed to go." On another part of the battlefield, Major Kelly Davis was leading her boarding teams to attack Krek's ships from the inside. The humans had studied the correct ship designs and found a way to get inside without being detected. Remember, we go through their waste systems, Kelly told her teams over the radio. It's not pretty, but they won't expect it. The human soldiers crawled through pipes and tunnels inside the Krex ships. They were small enough to fit in spaces that the big Krex warriors could not reach. When they got to important parts of the ship, they planted explosives and moved on to the next target. The Krex crew heard strange noises in the walls, but could not figure out what was making them. By the time they realized humans were inside their ship, it was too late. War Master, we have intruders on deck 7, 12, and 15, a Krex officer reported. Send security teams to stop them, Thek ordered. Sir, our security teams cannot fit in the passages where the humans are hiding. They are using our own ship against us. Dr. Nancy Foster had spent years studying how different alien species worked. She knew that Krex warriors were strong, but had weak spots. Her teams carried weapons that were designed specifically to fight Krex soldiers. The weapons made very bright lights that hurt Krex eyes. They made high-pitched sounds that caused Krex ears to feel pain. The bullets were made from metals that could go through Krex armor at the joints where it was thinner. When Krex boarding teams tried to attack human ships, they found that the humans were ready for them. Every hallway was a trap. Every room was defended by people who knew exactly how to hurt them. These humans fight like demons, one Krex warrior reported before his radio went silent. Admiral Kate Sullivan was commanding the overall human attack from her flagship. She watched as her ships destroyed Krex vessels that were 10 times bigger than anything the humans had. The secret was not using bigger guns or stronger armor. The secret was thinking differently. Atlas, show me the status of the Krex fleet, Kate said. Admiral Sullivan, 8 of 15 Krex dreadnoughts are either destroyed or disabled. 3 more are badly damaged. The remaining 4 are trying to regroup. Kate smiled. Her fleet of exploration ships and cargo haulers was beating the most feared military force in the galaxy. Captain Jake Morrison was fighting his own battle against a Krex cruiser that had been trying to destroy his ship for 20 minutes. Jake's ship was not built for fighting, but his crew had turned it into something deadly. Lisa, give me everything we have, Jake said to his second-in-command. Firing the mining laser, Lisa replied. The laser was supposed to cut through asteroids, but it worked just as well on Krex armor. Amy, jam their communications, Jake ordered. Lieutenant. Amy Carter used her communication equipment to fill the Krex radio channels with noise. The Krex could not talk to each other or call for help. Dr. Hayes, what do you have for me? Jake asked. I've hacked into their computer system, Peter replied. I'm turning off their artificial gravity. Their crew is floating around inside their ship and cannot fight properly. The Krex cruiser tried to run away, but Jake's ship followed it. The humans had turned a peaceful research vessel into a hunter that was faster and smarter than its prey. War Master, Thek watched his death fleet fall apart around him. Ships that had conquered entire star systems were being destroyed by humans in converted cargo haulers. Warriors who had never known defeat were being beaten by people who were supposed to be explorers and scientists. How are they doing this? Thek demanded. No species fights like this. Sir, they are not fighting like any known military force, his officer replied. They use everything as a weapon. They turn our strengths into weaknesses. They make us afraid. For the first time in his life, War Master Thek felt real fear. By the 4th hour of battle, 12 of the 15 Krex dreadnoughts were either destroyed or captured. The remaining 3 were trying to escape when Captain Morrison opened a communication channel to the Krex commander. War Master Thek, this is Captain Morrison of the human fleet. You have one chance to surrender. Thek's response was filled with hatred and confusion. What are you? No species fights like this. Jake's reply was heard by every ship in the system. We are what happens when you back humans into a corner. We are what you forgot to fear. News of the Battle of New Haven spread through the galaxy faster than light itself. Every species that had a communication system heard the impossible story. Humans had destroyed the Krex death fleet using cargo ships and mining equipment. 43. Civilian vessels had beaten 15 military dreadnoughts in 4 hours. The Galactic Defense Force had expected to find nothing but dead bodies and burning cities when they finally arrived at New Haven. Instead, They found the Krex fleet in pieces floating in space, and 40 million Zephyrian civilians alive and celebrating their freedom. General Marcus Wright was the human representative to the Galactic Council. He was a calm man who had spent 20 years trying to keep peace between humans and other species. Marcus had hoped he would never see the day when humans went to war again. Now he was being called to an emergency meeting where angry aliens wanted to punish his entire species. The council chambers were in chaos. Representatives from hundreds of different worlds were shouting at each other in dozens of languages. Some wanted humans kicked out of the galaxy immediately. Others were asking for human protection from their enemies. Fear and confusion filled the air like smoke. High Counselor Vex of the Altarian Federation stood up and pointed an angry finger at Marcus. Vex looked like a tall human but had purple skin and 4 arms. His species was known for being very organized and following rules. Exactly. The humans have violated the Treaty of Prohibition, Vex declared loudly. They must be expelled from the galactic community immediately and permanently. Marcus stood calmly in the center of the room while aliens shouted around him. He had been expecting this reaction. With respect, High Counselor, humans saved 40 million innocent lives that your defense force abandoned. We broke no laws by protecting civilians from murder. You deployed weapons and tactics that were specifically banned by the treaty, Vex replied. We deployed weapons and tactics that you forgot existed, Marcus corrected. For 3 centuries, you have asked us to be merchants, explorers, and scientists. You made us promise to never again show you what we were before we reached the stars. A strange quiet fell over the chamber. Many of the alien representatives suddenly looked uncomfortable. They were beginning to remember why the Treaty of Prohibition had been written in the first place. Dr. Helen Murphy was Earth's chief historian. She was an old woman with white hair who had spent her entire life studying human history. Helen had brought classified files that most aliens had never been allowed to see. These files told the real story of how humans had joined the galactic community. Before we had faster-than-light travel, Dr. Murphy explained to the silent chamber, humans spent 5,000 years perfecting warfare. Every civilization we have encountered learned to fight after they reached the stars. We learned to fight before we could leave our planet. She activated a holographic display that showed images from Earth's history. Ancient battles with swords and spears, wars fought with gunpowder and cannons, conflicts that used airplanes and tanks, finally the terrible weapons that could destroy entire cities in seconds. When humans first met other species, Helen continued, we were already experts at warfare. We had weapons and tactics that no other species had ever imagined. We had spent thousands of years learning how to kill each other efficiently. The alien representatives stared at the images with growing horror. They saw humans fighting in ways that seemed impossible. Soldiers who would die to complete their missions, generals who would sacrifice their own forces to win battles, warriors who treated war like an art form. The Treaty of Prohibition was not created to protect the galaxy from humans, Helen said. It was created to protect humans from having to show the galaxy what we are truly capable of. Senator Claire Adams represented the human colonies scattered throughout space. She was younger than the other human diplomats but had a reputation for speaking truth even when it was uncomfortable. Claire stepped forward to address the chamber. You want to know why the Krex Empire has been expanding for the past year without anyone stopping them? Claire asked. Because you have forgotten what real warfare looks like. You fight with rules and honor and expectations of mercy. The Krex fight to exterminate entire species and your defense forces cannot match their brutality. She pointed to the display showing the destroyed Krex fleet. Humans stopped them in 4 hours because we understand something you have forgotten. Sometimes the only way to stop evil is to be more dangerous than evil itself. Ambassador Zara of the Zephyrian Republic stood up slowly. She was one of the survivors from New Haven, and her blue skin still showed scars from the Krex attack. I was hiding in a basement with my children when the humans arrived, she said quietly. We thought we were going to die. The Krex were already landing troops in our cities. Her voice became stronger as she continued. The humans did not just save our lives. They saved our entire species. 40 million people are alive today because humans chose to break your treaty and do what was right. Other representatives began to speak. The Vorthan delegate talked about how Krex pirates had stopped attacking their trade routes after hearing about the battle. The Crystalline Collective mentioned that 3 different hostile species had suddenly started asking for peace negotiations. The galaxy has been at peace for 3 centuries, Marcus said. Not because your defense forces were strong, but because humans chose not to fight. The moment we decided to act, the most dangerous empire in the galaxy was defeated in a single battle. Hi. Counselor Vex sat down heavily in his chair. The chamber was completely quiet now. Everyone was thinking about the same terrifying question. If humans could destroy the Krex death fleet so easily, what else could they do? What do you want from us? Vex asked finally. Nothing, Marcus replied. We want to go back to being explorers, and scientists and merchants. We want to pretend this never happened, but we also want you to remember that if innocent people are in danger, and nobody else will help them, humans will act. The vote was taken 3 hours later. The Treaty of Prohibition was officially ended, but no new treaty was created to replace. Gersher, the galaxy had learned that some things were better left unwritten. From that day forward, the mere knowledge that humans existed somewhere in space was enough to make aggressive species think twice before attacking peaceful worlds. 6 months after the Battle of New Haven, the galaxy had become a very different place. The Krex Empire, which had been expanding across space like a disease, suddenly found themselves facing a new problem. Every species they tried to attack now had human advisors helping them fight back. The Krex tried to attack the peaceful Andromedans 3 months after New Haven. They expected an easy victory against a species that had never fought a war. Instead, they found Andromedan ships using human tactics and human-designed weapons. The Krex lost half their attack fleet in the first hour and retreated in shame. War Master Thek, now a prisoner on a neutral world, watched the news reports from his cell. His mighty empire was crumbling because one species had decided to fight back. The Krex High Command sued for peace within 4 months, something that had never happened in their 1,000-year history. Captain Jake Morrison found himself promoted to admiral and given command of something called the Human Defense Corps. The irony was not lost on him. The species that had been banned from warfare was now the galaxy's unofficial police force. Jake stood on the bridge of his new ship, the Retribution, looking out at the stars. The ship was not really a warship. It was a converted exploration vessel just like the Endeavor had been. But everyone in the galaxy knew that human ships were dangerous no matter what they looked like. Admiral, we have a situation developing in the Outer Rim, reported Captain Lisa Rodriguez. She now commanded her own ship, the Defiant, and was Jake's chief field commander. Pirates have been attacking merchant convoys near the Helix Nebula. How many pirate ships? Jake asked. Intelligence reports suggest about 20 vessels, sir, but here's the interesting part. They surrendered as soon as they heard human ships were coming to investigate. Jake smiled. This was happening more and more often. Criminal organizations that had terrorized shipping lanes for decades were simply giving up when they heard humans were involved. Nobody wanted to find out what humans would do to people who hurt innocent travelers. The Galactic Council had been forced to create new laws about what they called the human factor. Any species that attacked civilians would automatically face the possibility of human intervention. This was not an official policy, because no government could control what humans chose to do. It was simply a fact that everyone had to live with. Commander. Scott Barnes was now running a training program for other species who wanted to learn human fighting techniques. His students were pilots from dozens of different worlds, all trying to understand how humans thought about combat. The key is not to follow rules, Scott explained to a class of confused alien pilots. Your enemies expect you to behave in certain ways. When you do something unexpected, you win before the fighting even starts. A young Vorthan pilot raised his hand. But Commander Barnes, how do we know what is unexpected? Scott grinned. You think like your enemy wants to kill your family. Then you think about what you would do to stop them. Then you do something even more extreme than that. The alien pilots looked at each other nervously. They were beginning to understand why humans had been banned from warfare. Dr. Peter Hayes now worked at the new Galactic Peacekeeping Institute. His job was to develop strategies for ending conflicts before they started. But everyone knew the real purpose of his work was to find ways to avoid having to use human military capabilities. Atlas. Analyze the current tension between the Rigel, Confederation and the Tau Ceti Alliance, Peter said to his AI companion, Dr. Hayes. Both sides are requesting human mediation. Neither side wants to risk fighting against human-advised opponents. Excellent. Send diplomatic teams to both governments. Remind them that humans prefer talking to fighting, but we are very good at both. President Nathan Clark gave a speech to the reconvened Galactic Council 1 year after the Battle of New Haven. Nathan was a calm man who had been elected specifically because he could talk to alien species without making them nervous. But his words carried weight that no human president had ever possessed before. For 3 centuries you have lived in the safest era in galactic history, Nathan told the assembled representatives. Not because your defense forces were strong, but because humans chose peace. What happened at New Haven was not humans choosing war. It was humans choosing to protect the innocent when no one else would. The alien delegates listened in complete silence. Many of them still had nightmares about what humans might do if they ever decided to conquer instead of protect. The Treaty of Prohibition has been replaced by something much simpler, Nathan continued. Humans will not attack anyone who does not attack innocent people first. But if you choose to become a threat to peaceful civilizations, you will face the species that perfected warfare before we could travel between stars. Major Kelly Davis was training Special Forces units from friendly species. Her students learned how to fight in places their enemies never expected them to be. They learned how to turn everyday objects into weapons. Most importantly, they learned how to think like humans. Remember, Kelly told her latest class of alien soldiers, your enemy expects you to be honorable and predictable. Honor is good. But dead heroes cannot protect anyone. Sometimes you have to be willing to do terrible things to stop even worse things from happening. The final entry in Admiral Morrison's personal log captured what had changed in the galaxy. Today I received a message from the government of the Krex Empire. They want to establish formal diplomatic relations with humanity. The species that spent 1,000 years conquering and destroying others now wants to be our friend. Jake paused his recording and looked out at the peaceful space around his ship. The galaxy learned something important at New Haven. Humans are not interested in ruling anyone or conquering anything. We just want to explore new worlds and meet new people. But if someone threatens innocent lives, they will face a species that has been preparing for war since before we could fly. The galaxy was safer now. Pirates had disappeared from most trade routes. Aggressive empires were negotiating instead of attacking. Species that had been enemies for centuries were working together to avoid attracting human attention. War Master Thek, in his final interview before being transferred to a rehabilitation center, gave the answer that became legendary throughout the galaxy. When asked what had gone wrong at New Haven, he said simply, "We forgot that humans do not just fight wars. They end them." The galaxy now lived with a new understanding. Humans were not banned from warfare anymore because they did not need to be. The knowledge that they existed, that they watched, and that they would act when necessary was enough to keep the peace. Everyone knew that somewhere in the darkness between the stars, humans were flying their converted cargo ships and exploration vessels. They looked peaceful, but appearances could be deceiving. The galaxy had learned that the most dangerous warriors were often the ones who preferred not to fight at all.